Welcome to session 1 of Holding Hope, a 5-week series specifically for those experiencing depression, dissociation, and overall hopelessness. I am very much looking forward to this series, and I've really molded every session to give you a little something different each week. And in this week, our first session, we are going to be exploring some standing shapes as well as some heart opening shapes. And I invite you to have some blocks, or maybe just one block, and 1 or 2 blankets nearby. And if you don't have a block, you could always use a bolster for one of the shapes that we're going to be exploring. So whatever you have on hand, go ahead and set up your space exactly as you'd like it. And for our first shape today, we'll be lying on our backs, but you'll need some room to be able to stretch your arms up above head. So if you would like to join me there, you could begin to find your way down onto your back. And I have a blanket underneath me that's just for comfort. If you'd like to have that, you can. And you could plant your feet on the floor. Or if you want to extend the legs out long, that is also an option. However, if you notice a little bit of tension in your lower back, it might be helpful to plant your feet on the floor. And you could also drape a blanket over your legs if this shape feels a little bit vulnerable. And even if you don't want a blanket for this particular shape, you might want a blanket for one of the next shapes that we'll be exploring. So you could always just have it close by if you want. And if you choose to have your feet planted on the floor, you might even allow the feet to walk out a little bit towards the left and right side edges of your mat, and allow the knees to fall in toward one another. This is option 1. Option 2 is just to simply leave your feet parallel to one another, hip distance apart. Maybe the knees are also hip distance apart. So you can kind of explore these 2 options and decide what works best for you. Third option being to just simply extend your legs out. And with this, I invite you to begin our session with the eyes open. And simply noticing this change of perspective, allowing your eyes to roam, noticing whatever is above you. Even if you've been in the space that you're currently in many times, can you allow your eyes to notice and move as if this is your first time in the space, or maybe seeing with new eyes? You might notice the color of the ceiling or whatever is above you. You could also allow your head to turn to the left and the right, noticing what surrounds you. And then when you are satisfied, you might choose to leave your eyes open, or you might choose to take them closed. Beginning to tune into your sense of sound. You might notice any sounds that are outside of the space that you're in, maybe outside of the room. So noticing those sounds in the distance. You don't have to do anything about what you hear. We're simply just noticing our surroundings, grounding into this present moment. And you might allow your sense of sound to grow closer. Maybe noticing any sounds that are in the room with you. And then perhaps even closer still. You might even hear the sound of your own breath as it moves in and out. And if at any point you'd like to take a deeper breath in and out, if it feels natural, you might even breathe in through your nose and sigh it out of your mouth. And shifting away from the sound of your breath and into your body, feeling the clothing touching your skin. If you're wearing a t-shirt or a sweater, perhaps you can feel the fabric and the texture of the fabric on your abdomen or your arms. You might even place a hand over your abdomen and maybe even feel the texture of your clothing with your fingertips. And then shifting away from the texture of your clothing and bringing awareness to where your body is touching the floor. So if you are lying on your back, you might observe your shoulder blades and your shoulders touching the floor, the back of your head, your hips, your legs or your feet, maybe even the backs of your arms or elbows. And just resting in this awareness of your body touching the floor for 2 more breaths. And today for our practice, I offer you a contemplation. And it's in the words of Glennon Doyle. And she writes, "The only thing that was ever wrong with me was my belief that there was something wrong with me. The only thing that was ever wrong with me was my belief that there was something wrong with me." It is so easy to believe that we are defective or wrong or broken in some way because our nervous system experiences difficult sensations and sometimes overwhelming. But today, for this class, maybe just for this class, could you hold this possibility in your body, in your mind, in your heart? There is nothing wrong with me. There is nothing wrong with me. And can we just hold that possibility? If that doesn't feel true for you, I invite you to just explore the possibility. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with my body. My body is wise. My body knows exactly how to keep me safe. There's nothing wrong with me. So I invite you to decide if you would like to explore that possibility for this session. And if this does not serve you today, you can release it at any time. And with that, if you are ready to begin moving, I welcome you to place the hands down by your sides, resting them on the floor. And we'll begin to move with our breath. And we could start here with just one easeful breath in and out. And with your next inhale, I welcome you to reach your arms overhead, stretching them up and back behind you, resting them on the floor, as if you're stretching for the first time in the morning. And as you exhale, you might begin to bend your elbows and create a goal shape, or like a half box shape with your arms, as the elbows bend and the hands and the arms still rest on the floor. And then inhale, extend them out into a T. So now our arms are just stretching out to the left and the right. And exhale, begin to cross your arms over your chest as if you were giving yourself a hug. And you might even give yourself a little squeeze, squeezing in. Staying here for one breath, and we'll continue this pattern, this rhythm, for a few more rounds, so you can connect with your own breath and move in your own timing. And when you're ready, perhaps with your next inhale, you could unravel the arms and reach the arms back overhead, maybe even taking a stretch. Exhale, maybe you drop the elbows down, perhaps even create a W, maybe drawing your elbows in a little bit closer toward your chest, toward your ribs. And an inhale to extend your arms out into a T. The arms could either hover off of the floor or they could rest on the floor. And with an exhale, you could wrap your arms around your chest in a hug, maybe even giving yourself a gentle squeeze. One breath here. And we'll take that rhythm once more on each side, so you could breathe in and reach your arms up overhead. Maybe you stretch and exhale to drop the elbows down, maybe into a goal post shape or into a W. Inhale to extend your arms out to a T. And exhale to cross your arms over your chest, giving yourself a gentle squeeze, or maybe even a firm squeeze if that feels welcome to you. Last cycle here. Option to breathe in or stay where you are if that's supportive. But if you'd like, you could breathe in and stretch your arms up overhead. Exhale. When you're ready for it, you could drop the elbows. Inhale to stretch, open into a T. And an exhale to cross your arms over the chest and squeeze for one breath, pausing here. Option to stay here in this hug for a little bit longer if it feels welcome to you. If you feel supported here, you can continue to support yourself and allow the floor to support you. Or if you're ready to release this shape, you might begin to unravel your arms, stretch them up above the head, maybe take a few wrist rolls here, big stretch if you want. And then you could release your arms right back down to your sides when you're ready for it. And here, I invite you to plant your feet hip distance apart if they aren't already, and allow the knees to also be hip distance apart. And this is where we have an opportunity, if we aren't already using our blanket, to drape the blanket over the lap and the knees. And I'm going to show you the shape without the blanket first so that you can see me. And we'll be taking a bridge shape, but here we can explore a couple different ways to be in this shape. So option one, you might explore rolling through the spine, rolling up and rolling down. So that's option one, and I'll show you that now. You could work with your breath here by pressing into your heels, pressing into your feet, and beginning to curl your tailbone up, allowing the curve to climb up your spine until you come to the tops of your shoulders. And as you exhale, you could begin to reverse the curvature. So starting from the top and working our way down, allowing your tailbone to come down last. So this is option one. Curl the spine, peel it up off of the mat, and then peel it right back down like you're peeling a sticker. And again, option here to place a blanket, drape it over your lap. The second option here is to simply lift like an elevator. So you could press into your heels, press into your feet, and just lift your spine up off of the mat, and then lower it back down. So two choices. You could peel the spine like a sticker, peel it up and peel it back down, or you could lift your spine like an elevator. Blanket or no blanket, the choice is yours. I'm going to drape a blanket over my legs so that you can see what that might look like. Just provides a little bit of support and hopefully a bit more of safety. And so wherever you decide to be, whether you decide to peel the spine or lift the spine, or maybe you decide to skip this shape altogether, I welcome you to be here for the next 5 rounds of breath. So that might look like 5 inhales of lifting up and 5 exhales of lowering down. Or if you'd like to hold at the top of your bridge shape for maybe a breath and then release, that is also an option. And you can decide what works best for you. As we take the last few breaths here in this shape. Last breath. And after your last breath, your last exhale, I invite you to lower the spine and the hips back down to the earth and pause here for a moment. Maybe even checking in on your spine and noticing how you feel. For just 2 more breaths. And as we're here for these 2 breaths, if it feels supportive to you, you might even bring to mind this contemplation for class. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not broken. My body is wise. It knows exactly what to do to keep me safe. And you might choose to stay here longer if this feels supportive. Or if you are ready, you could begin to roll to one side and pause here in a side-lying shape for a breath or two, just giving the body a moment to adjust. And in your own timing, you could begin to press yourself up. And I invite you to come into a child's shape. You might even adjust your props if you need to. And so, if you'd like to join me in a child's shape, you might explore taking the knees a little bit wider, or you could keep the knees together. An option here to have your toes perhaps even touch back behind you. And then you could begin to lower the hips down toward the heels. And option here to, again, wrap a blanket around your hips if you want that sense of covering and support. That might feel really welcome. And option here to extend the arms out, maybe even bring your forehead down to the mat, allowing your elbows to rest perhaps. Or you might decide to bring your elbows to the mat, maybe even making fists. You could either keep your gaze up or you could lower your forehead down onto your fists if you prefer to keep your eyes open. You decide what feels most welcome here. Taking 2 to 3 more rounds of breath. Simply noticing how you feel in your body. Perhaps observing the spine. Noticing if there's any sensation along the spine. As we take our final breath here. And you might choose to stay here longer if this shape is continuing to support you. Or if you're ready to continue moving, you could begin to shift yourself forward onto all fours. And here we have an opportunity to move through a Tibetan sun salutation. And so if you'd like to have your blocks close by, you can, as we'll be exploring a low lunge. And also, if you know that being in a low lunge, you might want some cushion underneath your knees, then you could fold up a blanket for underneath your knees, just to prevent discomfort. And we'll breathe in here. And if you're ready, you could exhale and begin to draw your right foot up, perhaps placing it on the outside of your right hand. Option here to plant your hands on the floor or use your blocks to bring the floor to you. Inhaling, option to stay here, or option to lift the arms up towards the sky. And here I'm going to stray from tradition and add in a shape. So you could choose to stay right here, or option to drop the elbows and maybe even peel the elbows back as if you are drawing your heart forward. This is a big heart opener here. Good, okay. You could reach the hands right back up if you're ready to. and release them down to your blocks. When you're ready, you could release your right foot, sending it back behind you, coming into our child shape again. Okay, so now that we've gone through one round, we'll create a little bit more of a flow. We'll start getting into a rhythm. And I invite you here to move at your own pace in a way that is sustainable to you. If you want to move faster or slower than me, you can. I'll be walking us through the steps continuously, but this is your practice and your body. So if you know that you need something slightly different, or that you want to add or take away some shape that we're exploring, you absolutely can. No permission needed. Okay. So if you'd like, you could meet me in your child shape. And with your next inhale, or when you decide to, you could begin to lift the head and rock yourself forward. As you exhale, you could draw the left foot forward, finding a low lunge, maybe even bringing your hands to your blocks. You could stay here, or you could begin to exhale and reach your arms up overhead. You might breathe in and exhale to drop the elbows, perhaps pulling your heart space forward. You might draw the elbows back. And breathing in, you could reach your arms up above the head and exhale to release the hands down. Inhale to send the left foot back, and an exhale to find your child shape temporarily. We'll take one more round on each side. Move in your own way here. This is your practice. Inhale. If you're ready, you could lift the head and rock forward. Exhale. Option to draw the right foot forward and find a low lunge. You could choose to stay right here, or you might begin to lift up, breathing in, and exhale. You could explore this heart opening shape. It's called cactus arms because you kind of look like a cactus. We'll breathe in when you're ready to reach the arms up, and then exhale to lower the hands down. In your own timing, you could move the right foot back and send the hips back for child shape. We'll take our last round. With your in-breath, you might rock forward. And with your out-breath, you might draw the left foot forward, finding a low lunge. Decide if you'd like to pause here, or decide if you'd like to inhale and reach yourself up. Exhale, you might find cactus arms, opening up your heart. When you're ready, release by lifting the arms up and exhaling them down. You might send your left foot back and rest in a child shape. Option here to find a child shape that supports your body, whether your gaze is lifted and your elbows planted on the floor, or maybe your gaze is down and your arms are outstretched. There is no right or wrong here. It's completely your choice, your practice, your body. And I invite you to be here for 2 more rounds of breath, just pausing to notice how you feel. Last breath. And with your next inhale, you might decide to stay right here in your child shape. Or if you'd like to continue moving, option 2 is to find your way forward into a tabletop shape. And I invite you to explore either a puppy shape or a down dog. And so I'll walk through both of those. Puppy shape first. We'll find some engagement in our core, about half strength. And the only reason why we do this is to protect our lower back, especially if you have any like tension in your lower back. So we'll engage the core, maybe exhaling out and feeling your core, your abdomen, draw in toward your spine. It doesn't have to be 100% effort, it could be 50%. And holding this engagement in your core, you could begin to walk your hands forward. This is for puppy shape. And with your hands extended far out ahead of you, you might begin to lower the chest down toward the mat. And so the chest won't actually touch the mat because we have our core engaged, but you might release your forehead down. The forehead might rest on the mat, or it might hover above the mat. This is our puppy shape. So this is option 2. Option 1 is child shape. Option 2 is puppy shape. Option 3 is down dog. So if you'd like to explore down dog, you could come into a tabletop shape. Hands might walk a little bit ahead of your shoulders. And then you could tuck your toes and begin to lift the hips up towards the sky and stretch through your arms, stretch through your shoulders. And option here to keep your feet hip distance apart, or you might even take your feet out a little bit wider, maybe even as wide as your mat, as you have the option here to extend one heel down and then the other, kind of walking through your feet, kind of like you're walking, but your hands are on the floor and you're not actually going anywhere. Or you might explore simply sending the heels down toward the mat and finding stillness. So whatever you decide, any of those 3 choices, I invite you to be here for the next 4 inhales and exhales. And a gentle reminder that you can change your mind. If you chose one shape and then halfway through you decide you'd like to try a different shape, option to do so. You do not have to force yourself to stay somewhere if you're curious about something else. You can change your mind at any time. And we'll take the last 1 or 2 rounds of breath here. And wherever you're at, I'll meet you in a tabletop shape. Great. So option here to kind of move through the body. If you want, you could even visit a cat shape. So from tabletop, you might begin to exhale and round your spine up toward the sky, drawing the stomach in, drawing the core muscles in toward the spine to create this action. And then release back to center. If you would like to, you can meet me at standing in a forward fold. So you could step 1 foot forward and then the other. Maybe your feet are hip distance apart, maybe they're wider. And we could find our way down into a forward fold. And so in this forward fold, your knees can have a micro bend or they can have a really deep bend. You could also have blocks right in front of you for your hands supporting you. And if you would like to widen your stance, maybe take it as wide as the mat, that is also an option. And once you kind of find this spot where you'd like to be, option here to either bring the hands to blocks or to your shins. And with your inhale, you could lengthen through the arms and lengthen through the spine and take your gaze down toward the floor as if you're creating a tabletop with your back. This is our halfway lift. And as you exhale, you might choose to stay right here, or you could choose to come back down into your fold. All right. And we'll begin to inhale and rise up to standing, bending our knees and reaching up. Exhale, option to lower your hands down, maybe to heart center, or maybe you just release them down to your sides, depending on your preference. And we'll just take a pause right here. So option to take 3 breaths. Just connecting with your body. Maybe even feeling the floor beneath your feet. And if you want, your eyes could be closed or they could be open. And if your eyes are open, you might even look down at your feet, noticing my feet are grounded, my feet are connected to the floor, maybe even rocking and swaying from side to side, observing how your feet move as you rock, how the weight shifts from side to side. And if you don't have your eyes open, you could simply tune in to the feeling of this weight shifting side to side. Okay. You might choose to stay here longer if tuning into your feet planted into the floor is supportive to you. You could stay here longer, or if you'd like, you could meet me at the top of your mat. I'm going to move my blanket out of the way because we'll be exploring a standing shape. So to create a little bit of room. All right. So here from the top of our mat, option 2, step 1 foot back. I'm going to start on my right side, but you could step either foot back. And coming onto the ball of your right foot to find a high lunge. So you could begin to lunge into your front knee, and then you might even bend into your back knee a little bit, coming onto the ball of your back foot. And this bending the back knee helps. You don't have to do it. You could keep your back leg straight if you wanted to. But if you feel any tension in your lower back, like, ooh, this is causing some discomfort, then you could bend into the back knee and create a little bit of space for your lower back. So option 1, you could find a high lunge here. If this does not feel supportive to your body today, you could simply bring your back knee to the floor, release the tuck in your back foot, and we have a low lunge. So 2 options here, high lunge or low lunge. You choose, what does my body need? And here I invite you to tune into your legs, tune into your feet. Option to place your hands on your legs. Maybe you place one hand on either leg. Maybe you place both hands on your front leg and press into your leg with your fingertips and feel the engagement. Can you notice how strong your legs are, rooted down into the floor? All right, so I know we've been here for a minute already. So option 2, inhale. And as you reach your hands up, if you'd like to, you might lengthen through your legs, your front leg. So you have a choice here to kind of move in and out. Maybe you exhale, lower the arms and lunge back in. Inhale to lengthen. Exhale, maybe lower back down, lunging and releasing the arms. Inhale to lengthen. Or you might decide to just simply pause in this high or low lunge. Okay. The next time you're in a low lunge, I invite you to pause here, and maybe you return to this big heart opener that we explored at the beginning of class by opening up your heart space and pulling the elbows back. And we'll be here for just one breath. So option to breathe in, breathe out. Okay, and then we can inhale, bring our hands to our hips and lengthen through our legs and pivot so that our feet are both anchored to the floor facing forward. I know we were there for a minute, so we can just pause here and tune into our leg muscles. Maybe even placing your hands on your quads and feeling, how do the two sides of my legs feel different? Maybe noticing your stance here, observing if you'd like to take a wider stance or a narrower stance, as we'll be exploring a side stretch. So you choose, pausing right here. You might decide to just stay here. Maybe your hands stay connected to your legs and your attention continues to root down into your feet. Or if you'd like, with your next breath, you could reach the hands up. And with your out breath, you might begin to lean to the right. Option to place your right hand on your right leg as your left arm comes up towards the sky and reaches over in this big side stretch. You might take one full breath here. And with your next inhale, you might decide to come up. And exhale, option to take the other side. One full breath if you would like. And an exhale to come back up and out if you feel complete. Okay. So I invite you to explore a high lunge on the other side. So if you took it on the right side, last time if you stepped your right foot back, this time your left foot will be back if you want to switch sides. So I'm just going to pivot myself and adjust my stance. My left foot is back. My right foot is forward. An option here to lunge into your front knee, and option to lunge into your back knee. Maybe you come up onto the ball of your back foot. And again, you have the choice. You could find a high lunge, or you could release the back knee, untuck the back foot for a low lunge. You might choose to stay right here, connecting with the engagement of your muscles, connecting with your feet rooted into the floor, or if you'd like to find a fluid movement with me, connecting with your breath, you could inhale and reach your arms up overhead, and maybe you lengthen through your legs. As you exhale, you could lunge back down into your front knee and lower your arms. Perhaps you continue this movement at your own pace. Option to take another 2 breaths here, 2 or 3 rounds, depending on your pace. All right, last one. And this time, if your arms are lifted, you could leave them there and lunge into your front knee if you'd like, or you could keep the legs extended. And as we breathe in here, you might choose to bend your elbows into cactus arms and draw your heart space forward for one breath. Or you might release your hands at any time. If you're ready to leave this shape, you could inhale, reach your arms back up, lengthen through your legs, and come into a standing shape, maybe heel-toeing your feet together and shaking it out. You could move through your wrists, your feet, your ankles, kind of move in any way that feels welcome to you. Maybe even roll through the shoulders. You could even shake out the legs. And then if it feels welcome, you could come back to stillness. I invite you to place one hand over your chest and one over your abdomen. Standing in a way that feels stable in your body, adjusting your stance as needed. You might tune into your heart rate. Perhaps noticing if your heart rate has increased. Maybe your respiration, your breathing, has also increased. And here, I invite you to bring to mind our contemplation for class. The only thing that was ever wrong with me was the belief that there was something wrong with me. So can we hold that possibility for just a moment? Even if it doesn't feel true, can we just explore it? There's nothing wrong with me. I am not broken. There's nothing wrong with my body. I am not wrong. There's nothing wrong with me. Option to take a cleansing breath in and out at your own pace, breathing in through the nose and out. Option to stay here as long as you like, or if you're ready to begin coming down to your mat, I welcome you to place anything underneath your back that you'll need for support, if anything, and we'll be revisiting a supported bridge shape, similar to what we did earlier, but a little bit different. If you have a bolster or a block, that could be helpful. And as always, your blankets. So if you want a blanket underneath you, you can place one there. And you might have your second blanket for draping over the top. And maybe a block. Okay. If you have a bolster or a block, you could have that close by. And I'm going to show you without the blanket first so that you can see. Okay. So as you settle down onto your mat with your bolster or your block nearby, you could plant your feet hip distance apart with your knees and your legs parallel to one another. Option 1 is to take your bolster or your block, and you could press into your feet. So press your heels and your feet into the floor and lift your hips off of the mat. You could place your block at the lowest height or at medium height or even at the highest height, but just be aware that the higher the block is, the more intense of a back bend you're going to receive. And you could slide your block or your bolster underneath your sacrum. And so your sacrum is right above your tailbone. So if you notice that your tailbone is on the block and it's feeling some pressure, then you can move the block up a little bit just for comfort and anatomical safety. So here's option 1. And if you have a bolster, you could just slide the bolster right underneath you, just as we have the block here. Option 2, if you don't have a bolster or a block, is to simply hold yourself here for as long as you want, and then release whenever you want. Okay. And as always, you can take your blanket and you could drape it over your legs, drape it over your hips, creating a bit of safety. And if this shape does not feel welcome to you in any of the options that I've just given, you could always visit just having your feet planted on the floor, or you might even curl your knees in toward the chest if you prefer to hug it in. But if you are here in the supported bridge shape, I invite you to explore this shape for the next 5 to 7 rounds of breath. However, if at any time before the 5 to 7 breaths are complete, you have the desire to leave this shape, you can leave this shape at any time. No questions asked, no permission needed. And as you're here for the next 3 or so rounds of breath, you might bring some awareness to your heart space. Noticing how your heart feels in this moment. Perhaps even whispering to yourself, "There's nothing wrong with me. My body is wise. My body knows exactly how to protect me." I am learning how to trust my body. And after your last exhale, you might decide if you'd like to stay here in this shape a while longer, or if you are ready to leave this shape, you could press your feet into the floor, Lift the hips and remove the block or the bolster from underneath you, just setting it to the side. And coming into our final resting shape. You could choose to stay right here, lying on your back. Or maybe you lie on your side, or perhaps even on your stomach. Or you could always come up into a seated shape if you prefer that. There's no right or wrong wherever you are. I celebrate your choice today. I celebrate you honoring what you need in this moment, knowing that there are no wrong choices. If you'd like, you could cover yourself with a blanket or use any props to support you in your final resting shape. And before we come into our final resting shape, or before we come into our quiet time of rest, rather, I invite you to join me in a humming breath. So if you'd like, you could just notice your breath moving in and out. Knowing that you don't have to change your breath. However you are naturally breathing is fine. And you might choose to stay right here, just simply noticing your natural breath moving in and out at whatever pace it naturally moves at. Or if you'd like to, you could join me for a humming breath for 10 rounds. And so we'll take a natural inhale in, and with the exhale, we'll simply hum if you'd like to join. So when you're ready, we'll breathe in. Inhaling naturally and exhaling to hum. Continuing at your own pace. It doesn't need to sound pretty. And it doesn't need to be forceful. It can be soft and gentle. 5 more if you'd like. Two more. Last one. After your last breath, you might simply rest in the sensation that this humming breath has created in your body. As we shift into our time of quiet rest, we will be here for just a short while, about 60 seconds. And I'll keep time, I'll keep watch of the clock as you simply rest. There's nothing that you need to do or accomplish. We'll just be here together. You might begin to bring some awareness back into where your body is touching the floor. You could choose to stay in this time of rest longer if this is continuing to support you. Or if you are ready, you could begin adding some movement back into your body. Perhaps stretching the fingers and the palms open. Maybe taking a few wrist rolls. And if you're lying on your back, you might even roll over to one side just for a moment. And then you could begin to press yourself up. And I'll meet you in any seated shape. Option to place one hand over your heart and one over your abdomen, or you might choose to leave your hands resting wherever they naturally lie. And you might join me for one collective breath, starting with an exhale, and we'll breathe in together. Thank you for joining me. I hope that you feel safe, connected, and at home in your body. Thank you.